Hi everyone, it's Kay Kalthoff. Welcome to a Stamping to Share video. Today I'm going to share with you how to make a couple of wedding cards. They're identical, but they go so quickly once you have all your measurements and you have everything pre-cut. Actually, this is the card that I made for my daughter who got married this past weekend, so I'm so excited to share this card with you. Let's turn the camera down and get started. And here's our beautiful card. In the front it says Happy Wedding Day. And when you open it up, it says, wishing you a day of love and happy memories. And then you'll open it up one more time that says, followed by many days and years of the same. So it's kind of a three-part sentiment. And it's just gorgeous. It uses the Petal Promenade Designer Series paper. The stamp set that we're using is called Beautiful Bouquet. And again, as I mentioned, that's where all of these sentiments come in. And also, the Petal Promenade Designer Series paper looks like this. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I chose to work with, let me see if I can find it here. I chose to work with this sheet of paper because it has some rectangular pieces that you can cut in half and use as a border, as I did on the inside panel. So let me open that up. So you can see there's a little border here on the right-hand side. And then it also has a beautiful square. So let me grab that piece of paper. Here's the full 12 by 12 sheet. And there's some squares up here. And these are what I cut so that I could stamp the sentiment into for the front of my card. So let's go ahead and get started with this card. I have everything measured out and cut, so it's going to be very, very easy. And you may want to just go ahead and, like me, cut a few things in advance so that you can just go ahead and do this all at once. The Stamparatus is going to make this really quick because we can just line up all of our sentiments in advance on the Stamparatus and do all of our sentiment stamping right off the bat. So I think that's what we're going to start with, is the Stamparatus. Here it is. It looks like this. These are the instructions. Sometimes I use that as one of my shims when I'm layering it up, but I don't think I will have to do that anymore because I went ahead and from Stampin' Storage purchased the magnet pad that's specifically made for the Stamparatus from Stampin' Up. So again, this is from Stampin' Storage, and I'll have the link in my YouTube video and of course at the bottom of my blog post so that you can go there and check out their wonderful products for storing things and also for aiding. And so this is a wonderful tool. So what it looks like, let me just pull this up here, is I have everything ready to go. And what I did is I used because we're using a photopolymer stamp set, I went ahead, I used the foam pad. Then I have 2 sheets of thick, very vanilla, because my Stamparatus needs that. Every Stamparatus is going to be a little bit different, so you're going to have to work out your shims. But then once you have it all worked out, you know, you won't even hardly have to think about it. And then what I do is I put on my magnet pad from Stampin' Storage, and then we're going to go ahead and do all of our stamping. So the first thing that I think I'm going to stamp is I'm going to stamp on my 4 1/4 inch squares of this marble background. So the other side looks like this, which is also gorgeous, but because I wanted to actually stamp on top of the Designer Series paper, I couldn't very well use this. But that would be another idea that you could use for your background behind your flowers. So this is a 4 1/8 inch square. I'm just going to set it in here and put my magnet down. And we're going to go ahead and ink this image up. Let me get it all ready here. So I did do this in advance, so we won't have to take time. So I know it's going to stamp right where I want it. I'm going to ink my image up with Tuxedo Black Memento ink. And we're just going to fold that over. Give that a press, and we have our first one done. Now let's go ahead and do the second one because we're just going to go ahead and make 2 cards right at the same time. So I think I'll do it like this. And again, we're going to ink it up. And then we're going to flip it over. And again, we have a perfect image. And so there it is, ready to go. So we have one of the panels done. Now we're going to work on the very, very inside panel. And this panel is, again, using that same paper with the marble. And then it has kind of the fresh fig and mossy meadow flowers on the back side. I've cut this at 3 inches by 3.5 inches. And so, again, we're going to use the Stamparatus. And I did get this all prepared in advance. I'm so good like that. And so we are going to stamp the inside sentiment. So I am going to flip this to the side so it's easy for you to see what I'm doing here. And we're going to ink it up and bring it down. Whoops, and I forgot to use my magnet. So hopefully it will all work out well, and it did. So pretty. So I will make sure I use my magnet on this next one. Again, that's 3 by 3.5. And again, we're going to ink it up, flip it down, and that is done. So we already have 4 of the 6 panels stamped. So now we're going to take the plate from the Stamparatus and we're going to flip it around so that we can use our other sentiment image. And it says Happy Wedding Day. So now I'm going to take the beautiful little square floral pieces that I cut out. I cut them to 3 1/8 inch square. So that's what these look like. And so I'm going to go ahead now and do the very same thing that I had done in my other ones. So again, we'll set it here in the corner, ink this up, make sure the magnet is down here, and give that a little press. And it beautifully stamps Happy Wedding Day. Then we're going to do the next one. So you can see how the Stamparatus is really quite nice for when you're doing multiples and you want everything to look exactly the same. And possibly you are limited on your paper supplies, which I am because there's only 6 of these square ones per sheet. And so let me press that in. Perfect. And so I wanted to make sure that I made no mistakes when I was working with this paper. And so the Stamparatus helps me make no mistakes. So now we have all of our stamping done. So we are just going to set this out of the way. And we're going to make sure the ink pad is out of the way. And then it's time to assemble. So let me bring the card back into the photo again. And let's go ahead and layer up this image right here. So the very front of the card. So we're going to bring in our stamped squares here. And we're going to layer this onto some mossy meadow, 3 1/4 inch squares. So I'm just going to go ahead and do 2 of them at the same time. And I'm going to use a little multi-purpose liquid glue on the back because then I can just easily wiggle that into place. So we'll flip this over and just set this right in, and then just make sure that all of your borders are nice and even. The multi-purpose liquid glue is really nice for these particular sizes that I'm working with, because when you have a 1/8 inch border, it's pretty easy to not get that on straight right off the bat. And so this one will be straight because I have the option of wiggling it into place, and I just love that option. Now what we're going to do is put some dimensionals on the back side, and we are going to set this onto some glimmer paper. All right, as you can see, I went ahead, I put 5 dimensionals on each of my panels, and I took the little stickies off. Then I'm going to bring in some silver glimmer paper. This is 3 3/8 inches square, so it's 1/8 inch larger than this panel. So now I'm going to be very careful how I set it on. And I'm just going to hoover it over the top, make sure all of my edges are nice and even, and then give that a press. And we'll do the same thing with this one. All right, so that looks great. Now let's go ahead and we're going to put some adhesive sheets on the back of our glimmer paper. And we have these cut into 3-inch squares. Stampin' Up! Sells these wonderful multi-purpose adhesive sheets, and they're permanent, and they're great for using with vellum because they will not, the adhesive will not show on the other side. So I'm just going to pull this away, and then we're going to set this right here so it's pretty much square. And we'll do the same thing with this one. And again, we'll set this right here in the middle of this glimmer panel. All right, so we have that ready, but you know what? I'm going to burnish it onto the back to make sure that all of the adhesive will release. Sometimes you pull it away, and if you haven't burnished it, it may come up in little clumps where it doesn't want to stick, especially to the glimmer paper backing, because that is such a slick paper. All right, so here we go. It looks super. Now let's go ahead and work with some other parts of this card. So we're going to set these aside for a minute, and we're going to grab the base of our card panel. So the base is Gorgeous Grape. It's one of the new regular line colors in Stampin' Up!, and it's just a burst of beautiful color. This is 4 1/4 by 9 3/4, and then I've gone ahead and scored it at 4 1/4. And you will have something that looks like this. And once you fold that score line, and we'll give that a nice press, you will see that we have something that opens up like this. And so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing now with the second one. Again, I like to keep a bone folder handy because I want it to lie flat for us while we work with it. The next thing that we're going to do is grab some vellum paper, and I've gone ahead and scored this in advance as well, and this is cut at 3 3/4 by 8 3/4, and then I've scored it at 4 3/8. And so let me go ahead and fold this, and again we'll just, it's basically folded in half, but the score line helps with that. So here's one, and then we're going to go ahead and do the other one. So let me get that lined up and do that fold. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and, while we have this still nice and flat, make sure that it's opening up to the left, because this is going to be your front. And let me see if I can put this down on a piece of paper where you can see what I'm doing. So again, I have laid the vellum down folded and going to the left. In other words, it's opening like a backwards book. And then what you're going to do is take your panel that goes right here, and you're going to put it down so that the top, the bottom, and the left-hand side are all even. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. So I'm going to pull away the adhesive, and we're going to put this on very carefully. Now the adhesive is extremely sticky, so we want to make sure that when we do set it down, we have it exactly where we want it. So what I do is I just hoover it over the top, make sure my top, bottom, and left side are even, and then I can go ahead and place it down. And we're going to do the exact same thing for the other one. So again, you want to make sure that it's opening from the left, and then you're going to take your panel, grab that adhesive off the back, pull that away, then you're going to set it right here so that the top, the bottom, and the left side are even. There we go. Absolutely gorgeous. Now there's a little bit extra room over here because that is where we're going to put our ribbon wrap. So now we're ready to go ahead and start some serious card assembly. So again, we're going to bring back this Gorgeous Grape, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our side panels on next. And let me bring this full-size sheet in here, because as I mentioned, one thing that you can do is take this rectangular, cut it down to 4 1/8 inches tall, and then just cut it in half, and you can use one of these, which I did. So the measurements for that are 1 5/8 by 4 1/8. Or you can also trim this off at 1 1/2 inches, because you have this lovely flower border on the side and you might as well use it. And when you do that, you'll be trimming it off to 1.5 inches by 4 1/8. All right, so let's go ahead now and put these on. So we've got the larger flowers. They're going to go here. So I'm going to use some multi-purpose liquid glue because again, this is a really skinny border. We're just gonna set this on and there we go. So we have one of our flower borders done, and now we're going to do the other flower border. This one I cut just a tad bit different because I just cut it in half. So it's 1 5/8 inches by 4 1/8 inches. And this is the one that was the rectangular shape. So now we're gonna go ahead and put that one in, again, just with a little multi-purpose liquid glue. And again, the reason I'm using the multi-purpose liquid glue is just because it's such a skinny little border here. So we can wiggle that into place. And now we're ready to put our vellum panel down. So before we do that, let's go ahead and put in the sentiment. So we are going to do that with some snail. And again, we're just going to center this in so that all 4 borders are even on this particular one. That looks pretty good. And then you can flip it over and add a bunch of snail here to the back where it's not going to show through. So you're basically putting it onto where that flower image is. And then to put it into your card, you want to make sure that the top, the bottom, and the left side are all even. So it's just a matter of finding where that is and then giving that a nice press so that it is in place. So that looks all like that. It looks fantastic. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add our outside panel. So again, we stamped this earlier, so now I'm just going to flip that over, use some multi-purpose liquid glue here, and we'll set this in. Make sure everything is nice and in place. And there is our card. Now I'm going to do this with the other one. So again, I'm just going to open this up and I'm going to take my stamped image here that goes on the inside. We'll add this in so that everything is pretty much squared up. That looks good. Now we will put the adhesive on the back here. And then we just want to go ahead, center that in so that we have everything even on the top, the bottom, and the left side. And give that a press. All right, and so now we're going to go ahead and add that last panel that's going to go right here. So again, we're going to use some multi-purpose liquid glue. Set this in just like so. It's so beautiful. And now all we need to do is add our ribbon. So what I'm going to do next is take our silver edged metallic ribbon and I'm going to measure off about 20 inches. I want a little bit of play because we want to have some room for trimming ribbon edges. So let me go ahead, we'll open this up, we'll slip our ribbon under there and we will tie it off into a tie-on. And it does look like I was pretty generous with the ribbon, but I wanted to make sure that I had room to play. So there's the first ribbon. We'll just snip this off. And we have one completed and gorgeous wedding card. So you open to the right, open to the left, and there it is. And then the other card. Let me go ahead and finish that one up. So again, open this up. Slip our ribbon under there and we'll do our tie on. So some of you might be wondering how I do this tie on, so maybe I should slow down and show that to you. So what I do is I take the ribbon, I just like I'm going to tie my shoes. But then instead of doing the tie on right away, what I do is I turn the ribbon so that it almost looks like I'm wrapping a package. See how that looks? Then I put my pinky finger here to hold this in place, and then I put this over the top and bring it through. And then we have our pretty knot that looks like that. All right, and now we can go ahead and, whoops, trim this up so it looks great. There we go. So we've just completed 2 wedding cards in record time. Most of the time to make these cards go into cutting out the different pieces, but once you have the different pieces all done, it's really, really easy to whip these cards out, and they're just gorgeous. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate you, and if you'd like to place a product order, be sure to visit my blog at www.stampingtoshare.com. Have a great day. Bye-bye.